Hi, I'm Joe Connolly with producer Neil A. Carousso. To find out how the car business has changed and adapted in ways that other businesses may be able to emulate as well. Our guest is Robert Alvine, owner of Premier Subaru in Connecticut. I know if we were in the dealership, we'd probably have coffee brought to us and discuss casually about business. Robert, what are the main ways that you have changed the managing, the running of your business since the pandemic began?
Thank you, Joe. It's so great to be here. We pivoted to a model where we decided, well, let's see, we obviously, customers can't come to a showroom. We still need to sell cars so that we have an income and we can continue to keep our employees that are here supported. And so we went and we came up with a digital model. And quite frankly, it was a model that we had for several years that customers didn't really use a lot. And that's where they could take the process and buy the entire car online. And we would basically just deliver it to them. And customers didn't use it so much before the pandemic. And then instantly at the end of March of 2020 and April 2020, it became the only way we could do business. And so we really learned to pivot quite a bit into that model. And then as the pandemic went on and people came back out a little bit and some of those mandates were released, we realized that customers kind of liked the process. And whether they like the entire process or part of the process, we wanted to keep that digital process in place. So now we at least can tell a customer that we're going to sell you the car the way that you want to buy it.
Did you have to upgrade the website quickly, or was it sufficient to get you going for a while? And secondly, how did you now communicate this new way of operating to customers, or did you just wait for them to start to come to you, to start sending them emails?
Great question. So we had a digital process online that prior to the pandemic that we didn't have a high take rate on, but it was there. So we utilized that process to be able to start us out into what we needed to do. We since then developed and came up and acquired additional and new software to make it so much easier for our customers. We realized when more and more people were doing things online that wasn't a sufficient process. So we moved into a new software for that. And then we communicated it with people that, obviously people were at home. And so they were sheltering in place many ways. And so we used largely digital and traditional media to help us communicate that process to the customers.
With advertisements that we're here, we're open, reach us any way you want. What percentage of your customers now buy the vehicle completely online and have you deliver it?
And I just went over this with our team yesterday. We're a little over 20% at this point, totally online of all
That's
of our.
high because I read the other day that nationwide it's still only about 5% online. So you like it's not hurting your business? How's business now, Robert?
Business has been 2021 was an incredible year in many ways, and a frustrating year because obviously we're impacted like everyone else with supply chain shortages in the brands that we have, largely sparked with the chip shortages. And so the amount of cars that are being produced was it almost felt like a certain time, Joe, that somebody was stepping on a hose where the water can't come out all the way. I mean, you had people wanting to buy cars, and you still do, but you didn't have the inventory. And so business has been good. We're managing our customers' expectations. We're selling further into that supply chain for that. And I'm hopeful at some point we'll get a little bit more normalized production.
What does that mean, selling further into the supply chain? What do you mean, selling more used cars?
Well, used are obviously there, but into the new car, it was, a year ago, people would be able to go on the lot and pick from one of 400 cars or 300 cars. Now it's they come on the lot, and the lots don't have the amount of cars available that we once did. So the customers are now either ordering the car, or if it's a car in transit or on the boat, if it's an
Okay.
import from overseas. So it's now, you're speaking with a customer, and rather than them taking a car home today, they might take that home in July at this point.
And I just want to add that this is a second career for Robert, which is interesting to a lot of people as well, owning the dealerships. And we'll get into the second career aspect in a little bit. But Neil, go ahead.
Thanks, Joe. Robert, you mentioned a lot of the challenges you're going through. On the supply chain, have any of those pressures eased up a little bit, or have you found any solutions or a workaround?
Well, we've got to keep our variable, our sales operations going. So we've, like many dealers, went into the used car arena and just making sure we had good offerings in the used car arena for that. For new car customers, it still can be a rather frustrating time, especially people that have an immediate need for a car, because that vehicle that they want might not be immediately available. And so we're doing the best we can to try to accommodate those customers, and hopefully have one of several choices for those customers, so that we can get them into a car and help them be satisfied with their purchase. Are we seeing any of it improve? I would think in the Korean brands we have, the Korean brand, we are seeing some improvement, but in the Japanese brand, not as much.
Interesting. Now, materials are obviously costly right now. There's been talk, I don't know if there's any movement on this, but there's been talk about getting materials elsewhere and making that more sustainable. Do you see that as a future? Do you see any markets opening up to get materials cheaper, quicker, and avoid some of these challenges?
I think there's going to be an amazing, it's probably being done right now, forensic on this entire thing and the supply chain and materials, because this is now, we're seeing the complete downfall of the just-in-time inventory processes in manufacturing plants. When the raw materials aren't available just in time, there's no stockpiles with them. And I think last year, if you look at some of the car companies that made some good gains, they're ones that might have had some stockpiles of parts, whereas others that were just adhering to just in time didn't necessarily have that. So I do think there is going to be an absolute look at options and alternatives. I do think in many ways that none of us realized how many parts are made in so many far afield countries, so that your tier 1 supplier might have a tier 2 supplier somewhere else and a tier 3 supplier somewhere else. And so depending on where that country was in the pandemic, that could really impact everything. So I do think, to your point, there is going to be a significant look into that, because it's got to be, it's harder to run a retail establishment. To run a car company and have a 2 or 3 week visibility out into the supply chain has got to be incredible.
Right, Joe?
So what does it mean then if new cars, many, will probably continue to be in tight supply for another year? Means keep up your current one, right?
Yeah, no, I think they're going to be in tight supply. I think you're exactly right, for another year. And the unfortunate situation going on with Russia and Ukraine, I think, is going to ask a lot more questions right now, because there are suppliers that make parts in those countries. And so I think that the only thing that we can do is try to provide options and opportunities to our customers, make them happy with the options that are available to them, and do our best so that we can help them.
Can you dealers buy and sell cars between yourselves more than you used to do? If you needed a recent model, might another dealer sell that to you, or will he want to keep it?
Joe, we've come to the point where I think everybody is hoarding what they have to a bit because they need the cars. And so we when there were ample numbers of vehicles in inventory, we would routinely swap with another dealer through those good swapping relationships that we have. And I don't think we've done one of those in maybe close to a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, used cars are hot right now. Why, is that going to last as well? I mean, is that a trend that you see younger people coming in buying used cars? They're also rising in price, right?
They are. Used cars are rising in price because there's more used cars available than there are new cars available. They're rising in price in that regard. The demand is high, and they're rising in price because oftentimes the retail of that used car, if you can't get a new one, the market price has gone up to close to where those cars have been new. And so do I think it's going to continue? I think you'll see last year used cars appreciated. I believe it's nearly 30% in value, which is just an astronomical amount for a depreciating asset. I mean, cars go down. They're not supposed to go up unless they're, maybe one of these classic cars back here behind me. Hopefully those go up. But I think this year they will go down a bit, especially as the manufacturers sort out their supply chains and produce more cars. And I think you'll see that the car companies that are able to produce more, those used cars of those brands will come down in price a bit.
Wow. I think that it's a very good thing that cars last so much longer than they used to do, because I'm trying to keep mine going as well until the supply keeps up, and it has a lot of miles. How did you get into the car business as a second career, of all things?
Well, sometimes I think I might have tripped and hit my head, and then Joe. But no, I really love the industry, and I was a finance major and an MBA in finance. It worked in the banking arena, and interestingly enough, in one of the positions I had, I was financing and putting deals together for automotive dealerships around the country, and doing credit analysis and learning about their cash flows and things along that line. And I really liked it. And it was really interesting because a dealership is truly it's 5 different companies within a building. Your new car department, used car department, finance, service, parts, and they all work off of each other. And I found it incredibly fascinating. And back in 2000, my dad actually knew someone that had a small little Subaru store for sale in Branford, Connecticut, and I prepared a business plan, and I was one of many, I think, that tried to look at it, and took all the money that I had and everything I could muster up, and went and visited Subaru of New England, who's the distributor for Subaru in the Northeast. And the gentleman that ran Subaru of New England and owned it at the time, Ernie Bach Sr., looked at my business plan and actually was pretty impressed by it because I used all my banking knowledge to put it together. And he said, you know what, we're going to give you a shot. And so he gave me a shot, and I haven't looked back, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Wow, and he was a famous figure, one of the first big TV car advertisers, Ernie Bach. And
Sure.
One other question comes to mind. A lot of businesses we talk to have started a new line of business. Restaurants, for instance, are now selling T-shirts and their own recipes. I'm wondering, are there any parallel lines of business that a business like yours can go into?
We've looked at, for example, in our parts area, we went back in 2007. We saw a need that people like to order things online, and really automotive parts weren't necessarily something available on Amazon or a stable supply on eBay or any of those other types of things. And so we went into it and we put our toe into the automotive online parts arena for Subaru. And we did it under a different name. And if you went to the website, you wouldn't even know it's us. I mean, we really wanted to market it very differently, have totally different pricing, totally different things. And so we've gone deep into that over the last, now 15 years or so. And that's like a supplemental line, if you will. And we sell parts, believe it or not, all over the globe, and have a different operation within our operation that goes and handles that.
Wow. How do you get the parts?
Right. Well, you know what? Yeah. It seems that what I've seen is that during this pandemic, it seems that the parts, the most minute part to complete the car aren't available. But generally speaking, the parts that you need to repair or enhance your car are available. So we haven't really been hit as much on those items.
You're taking us behind the scenes of the car business. Are all those parts in Branford somewhere?
Yeah, they're in our
Wow.
facility.
I want to say you now have 4 dealerships, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, when you look at all of it, yeah.
Neil?
That's a great side business and certainly a supplemental revenue stream there. Let me ask you, for those who are interested in getting into the car business, how do you break through? What would you like to see change or revolutionize in your industry?
Well, I'll tell you, when I got into the industry, and when you're in the banking industry, you have a great relationship with your customers, and my customers are all commercial customers, businesses, and they relied on you, and you had relationships with them. And literally day one of me owning a dealership and trying to figure things out, I would talk to a customer, and they would kind of give me a look like, "Is this guy saying what he's saying is true?" And so I kind of coined the phrase that I went from an industry in which everybody believed everything I said immediately to one in which they believed nothing I said. And so we've had to morph our way from it, because there's a reason why customers in the past feel that way. There's a reason why people did. And it's not the greatest percentage of automotive retailers. They're good business people. It's the small percentage that ruined it for, could be an industry, or ruined it for a lot of people. So we have really tried hard to make sure that we have an authentic experience and a transparent experience for everyone. And in the future, I think obviously EVs are going to change that yet again. The movement to EVs, the movement in which people how they want to buy an EV, pricing on those things are going to do it. And so it's I guess to sum it up, it's a great business, and your reputation in the marketplace means all of it. And if for someone looking to get into the business, that's what it's all about. It's not about the car sale. It's about the relationship. And I think I took that from the banking industry, because, when I was a banker and commercial lender and knock on a company and there'd be 13 other guys with different business cards, I used to say to the owner of the company, we all have the same green money with the same dead presidents on it. And so how do you differentiate yourself if you're the bank? And that's the relationship and the service levels. And so I took that with me to this industry, because that's what it is.
And just to wrap up, that also goes back to word of mouth. Despite every social media channel, it still goes back to word of mouth. And I became aware of your dealership 2 years ago anyway, when a friend of mine bought a Subaru from you and said, "You really got to go to this dealership the next time you're looking for a car. These guys were great." and he told me about Premier Subaru in Connecticut, and I always remember that because it was in a way unusual to get such a strong recommendation, and I could see why you get good customer reviews. Thank you
Well,
very much, Robert.
thank you very much. I appreciate that comment. I appreciate it. And I'll leave you with one thing that I always talk about, and that is it goes back to when you talked about a restaurant and different things like they might be doing. And I don't want, I've always looked at, I in my own way, how many restaurants have I gone to and left with a great meal, but never went back? Because and so satisfied is one thing, but I want to make loyal is what I really want. And that's what
Interesting, because they were not friendly, they were not warm. They
or
were
you
not
were
likable.
satisfied, but you were satisfied, but you didn't hit that. You didn't get that little extra to get the to make a loyal fan.
They didn't go above and beyond.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do.
I'll tell you one other car story, involving restaurants and cars. We did a story once with the owner of a very high-scale restaurant in Westchester County. And we were talking about how he gets customer reviews. And he said, you know what I do? He said, I ask people how you doing, and they say, oh, it's fine, good. He said, I go out and ask the valet drivers, what were they saying when they left while they were waiting for the car to be brought up?
That's
and
great.
That was his most accurate customer feedback that he got.
Absolutely authentic, right? That's awesome.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.